With the total bridge closure, that process started, I want to say, a year and a half ago when they informed us that we were on their regular maintenance schedule. And when I first heard that in order to paint this bridge, it needed to be left in the open position for 4 to 6 weeks, I thought they were kidding, because I was like, they would never do that. Because do they understand that there's no other bridge that crosses this river for such a long distance, and it's like a 20-mile detour? But, so that was really concerning to all of us, and I think rightfully so, because that's going to have a crippling effect for a lot of our residents, and especially our businesses, frankly, downtown, I believe. So we worked with the county commissioners, and there was a task force established, like, hey, isn't there any other way you could do this? I mean, that was basically how those conversations began with SHA, is can't you do this at night? Can't you do this with one-lane closures? And they kept telling us over and over again, no, this is the only way. We ran the idea of, can you just remove the drawbridge and paint it in Baltimore and put a temporary span there? And they said, yes, that's possible, but it's really only going to save you about a week. So we ran all these ideas, some crazy, some I thought very interesting, to ground with them, and basically came to the conclusion that if that's the only way to do it, we need to pick the best of a bunch of bad options. So we had all kind of swallowed the pill that the total closure had to happen, and we picked the middle of the summer for a variety of reasons. The college was worried about May, tea parties in May, June is, there were reasons not to do it in all months, but it seemed like the fewest number of reasons were July and August. So we thought that was all that was going to happen, but they never said anything about long-term one-lane closures in addition to the full closure. And so I just heard about it a week from this past Monday, that supposedly starting this coming Monday, they need to close a lane for 24 hours a day, 5 days a week for 6 weeks. Well, how that small detail never got in front of us during that entire process is just inexcusable and not acceptable. Well, I think initially Comptroller Peter Franchot has been kind of very interested in this, because he really does seem to love Chestertown, and comes here all the time, and had a really good relationship with Margot Bailey, and has a good working relationship with Billy Short and our commissioners. And he basically, I think, has our backs. It's definitely on the one-lane closure, and he was kind of curious that we accepted the full closure, but I'm not a structural engineer, so if all SHA can tell me is that it has to be closed, then we need to pick the best of a lot of not good options, which we had done. But the one-lane closure on top of that is almost like a second closure. And I think since he sits on the State Board of Public Works, he hopefully has enough sway to help us, have them come up with an alternative method, whether that's doing it all at night, which would be better, or, why couldn't that structural work have been done in the winter when it's our slower time? That to me is the crux of the problem. They're doing it at this one time, April and May, when we said it would be the worst for us, and they just sprung it on us with absolutely no warning. I mean, the one common denominator of the SHA bridge closure, the hospital's oil spill, and the MDE overseeing remediation, and then the hospital's reduction in services, none of those are being initiated by Chestertown. They're all coming from other organizations that are much bigger than us, that are much better financed than the town. And I don't want to say it's scary, but it's daunting, because all these crises are really, honestly, something that we don't have total control over. All we can do is advocate for ourselves the best that we can using the limited resources that we have. But it is a tremendous time suck for all of our staff. And it's very challenging to be fighting all these crises concurrently and still keep the town running smoothly and still do projects that are actually fun and rewarding for us to do. I'm cautiously optimistic about the hospital. I feel like we definitely caught the attention of the people that we needed to catch their eye. I mean, when we had, I think the best thing that happened is the doctors took a lot of initiative to air their concerns. And when I start hearing, several dozen doctors within the hospital saying that we need to do something about this, that really grabs my attention, because they are inside the building.
Right.
And they know what we've lost, and they know how important those services have always been to the community. So when they basically took their lead and had that public meeting at the fire hall, and 500 people show up, that was awesome, because that had the exact effect that we hoped that it would. It was covered in all the local papers. There were lines out the door. Our entire Eastern Shore delegation was there and saw the passion and the concern. Board members of the hospital were there, and that caught the attention of Annapolis. And that, frankly, in my opinion, is where the battle can most effectively be fought for. Yeah, I mean, local governance at the hospital would be the ideal. Because what the doctors keep telling me and us, the people that are coming to a lot of these meetings, is, we need an administrator that lives here, that advocates for this hospital time and time again, and that it's not somebody that we're talking to over the phone that's 45 minutes away from us. They need to be here every day, and I think that's really critical. I think that's kind of something that's been lost in the acquisition, is that we have a few representatives on a much larger regional board rather than our own local board of local stakeholders. And I think that's made a difference in the quality at the facility. I know it's made a big difference in the morale at the facility, because their employees are telling me all the time that the morale is not high. And I think more local oversight, or at least hiring somebody that becomes a full-time resident of the county to oversee the facility, would be a step in the right direction. I've always said, when I ran for this job, the biggest area that the town has the potential for transformational change is on the waterfront and at Stepney Manor. And the two things that we have going for us is all that land is owned by the town and the college. And the town, it's been a long slog, but we are making progress on the marina, and we have a big grant coming up for USDA this summer, and that will tell us a lot about where we stand with pulling off our end of the deal. And the college just needs to move and do something down there, and whenever they do, they will have my backing 150%. But I'm not the guy that can get anything to happen there. They've got a big board, they've got their own president. There's a lot of moving parts that all have to agree. They got stuck in a tough economy after they acquired a lot of that land, which put a lot of those plans on hold. But I think we're at a time where they just need to move, and when they do, I will be there to support them every step of the way.